Holly.
Good morning, Anmar.
Welcome to my podcast.
Thanks. It's great to be here.
I would like to introduce this really amazing human that I have sitting next to me that is on my podcast today, A Foodie's World. Holly is my ex-partner, still partner.
Yeah.
Yeah, she's always going to be my partner. But in any case, she is a chef. She is an upcoming artist with her own show recently, and she is a vegan. And we're going to talk about veganism specifically today and why it's so important and why she's so passionate about it. But first of all, I want Holly to introduce herself, her businesses, and what she's all about.
All right. Thanks, Anmar. Well, my interest in plant-based, vegan, whatever you call it, goes back a long time. I grew up in a small town in Minnesota and grew up eating a lot of meat and dairy and everything. And then as I went into college, I kind of dabbled in vegetarianism, I guess. And then slowly over the years, I just did a lot of research and found out how cruel the industry is to animals. And that was one of my main reasons why I cut meat completely out of my diet and really relied on a plant-based diet, not only for my health, for the health of the planet, and also the animals. So in my business is called Full Moon Foods. I have a collection of vegan cheeses that I'm very passionate about making for a local winery in San Diego. Plus I make, big grazing tables for my clients, and anything my clients want, they can have, but make it vegan.
So the reason why we were such good partners is because I was doing the non-vegan part and she was doing the vegan part. And it was a good balance between me and her. She's doing all the non-meat products and I was doing all the meat products, although sometimes I threw her in the deep end and she had to touch some meat.
Not frequently, though.
Not frequently. So, Holly, I understand that if you're a vegan, I've been a vegan myself, as you know. I am not a vegan anymore because what I do doesn't make it possible for me to really be a vegan unless I am just a vegan chef. I know there's two ways you can go in veganism. Like you, because of animal rights and everything. And then there's people that just does it for the health part. Now, when we talk about these health options that you get out of veganism can you explain to us how plant-based food is better according to you? And I mean, there's studies as well, so I know you read the studies.
Yeah.
I agree with her in many ways. Mm-hmm. Okay. Explain to us the importance of the health benefits of being a vegan and plant-based.
Well, for me, I guess it started about 3 or 4 years ago. I entered into menopause and I was just like, I need, something that works for my body, that I can get all my nutrients, and just something that's simple. So for me, veganism was really easy. And everyone, of course, in the world is like, where do you get your protein though? And I'm like, come on, people, look at the biggest vegans on the planet. They are animals such as gorillas, such as elephants. Are they withering away to nothing by not eating meat? No. So it's possible. So I basically just really, like I said, simplified my diet. And I really make sure to eat enough leafy greens. I try to eat as local and seasonal as I can by going to the farmers markets. And that's a big passion of mine too, as well as yours, supporting local farmers. And we love those relationships with our local farmers. And I really like to cultivate that and support locally. I, of course, go to the big markets as well. But for me, what I always tell my clients is if you can, do one day that's plant-based, like it's so good, not only for your body, but for the environment. Like the environment is a big part of my life too. Like I really try to cut down on my environmental impact as much as I can by, really doing that locally based food.
No processed. I know that she believes, like I do, that processed food is an absolute big no-no for both of us. Processed food is really bad for your body, for your health in many ways. Now, when we're talking about protein sources as a vegan, can you help us out a little bit and describe what protein sources there is and how you will source them a lot of times? Because I know a lot of people's like, yeah, but what's protein? Um, Protein is very, very available in a vegan diet, and people don't even realize that. So
Absolutely.
talk a little bit about that to us.
So, of course, the main protein source that people think of when they think, oh, what does a vegan eat? Of course, tofu. Tofu is like a big one. And, there's tofu over the years has been very controversial because a lot of people believe, oh, it's bad for women and causes extra estrogen production in our bodies, which is not the case. So for me, I do eat a lot of tofu, but also beans. Beans are like my number one thing that I go to, beans and lentils. But beans are so good for longevity too. I read a study from Dan Buettner, who is the author of the Blue Zone diets. And there's 5 blue zones in the world. And people there in those zones live to be over 100. And the main focus of their diet is beans. So I always tell people incorporate like a cup or 2 of beans in your diet every day. And the study says that you will add 2 years onto your life if you incorporate beans into your life every day. I'm like, okay, I'll do that. That's an easy thing. So beans are my number one go-to, but also leafy greens. They're so good for you. I also do like a lot of, like I said, lentils. Lentils are great. So along the lines of that, beans and lentils are awesome and like huge in my diet.
That's absolutely great. I also know that there is certain vegetables that is protein rich.
Yes.
So broccoli is
broccoli is great.
Great
And
protein.
any cruciferous vegetable is really great, like broccoli, like cauliflower, things like that in that family are so good for you for protein and also for fiber.
Yes, it is. So when people tell me that there is no protein in vegetables, they are really wrong.
Yes.
Agreed with that one.
Yes.
Because if you can go and sit and study on vegetables, there is certain, I mean, there's starches, there is your greens, there is all these different types of vegetables, your root vegetables.
I was just going to say root vegetables.
Root vegetables, your above ground, your fruit, and everything has different vitamins and proteins and stuff like that. So thinking that you don't get any proteins out of your vegetables are very wrong as well.
Yeah. And I feel like, especially in America, we're so obsessed with thinking that we can only get protein from meat. And that's just like been like punched into us since I was a kid, for sure.
I think most of the countries, and I have to agree, coming from South Africa, which is a meat-eating country.
Right.
I mean, I was just home and people were eating 5 different types of meats in the evening, and I'm like, oh my gosh, I live in America and there people eat, and they eat big amounts, but here they don't eat as much, but they do have a big variety of proteins according to them that they set out. Not a lot of vegetables. They believe in like the starches and the meat. There they go.
I mean, definitely, as you grew up in South Africa, there's so many different ways that people eat around the world. So it's like, and 2, I tell everybody, maybe it's not right for you, veganism or not eating meat, but it works great for me. So
yeah, I mean, it's a health thing. I do veer most of the time a little bit more to vegetarian veganism than eating a lot of protein.
Yeah.
I get forced to taste the protein when I'm cooking it because a chef that doesn't taste its own food, I would not pay attention. If a chef makes food and they do not taste it, I'm like, how do you put food out to people if you don't even know what it tastes like? But eating healthy has become such a big part of life. I think if you look around you, especially in California where we live,
Absolutely.
health is so big here. And then there's so many vegan restaurants that you can go
Yeah,
to that
it's
is
great.
absolutely beautiful.
Yeah, and even from like 13 years ago when I moved to San Diego, it's the climate here for vegan restaurants and options has changed like overnight. Like it's great at the options. And then even when you go to, a non-vegan restaurant per se, there's always options. And if there isn't, I ask. You can always have the chef make you something that's, vegetable related and it'll be easy. So I think people overcomplicate it sometimes. It's very, very simple to eat vegan.
It is very simple to eat vegan. It's but it's funny because went to Houston recently. I think you've been out of the state quite
Oh,
a
yeah.
few times as well. And then we go to places where there's really no vegan restaurants available. And you look around you and you're like, okay, where do I go and eat? You go eat at a normal, you can go eat at Applebee's.
Yeah.
And still eat vegan.
Right, right,
So
absolutely. Yeah, and it was so different for me growing up in the Midwest because the Midwest is all about meat and potatoes. And that just, that's what I ate growing up. But then I left home and moved to Minneapolis, and I was like, a whole new world, And there's just, yes, there's more options in Minneapolis now, but back then there was not options. Like in the 80s, going to college, there was not like late 80s, early 90s in Minneapolis, there was like nothing for vegan, vegetarian, maybe vegetarian, but not vegan for sure. But now when I go back, there's definitely more options, but it's still Midwest still has a way to go, as far as like vegan, vegetarian, because they are so meat focused in the Midwest. Like Anmar said, compared to here, where Californians are so concerned about their health, it's nice here mostly, and we can be outside, doing hikes or walking on the beach and getting our steps in that way.
it's true. So I know you go around and you eat at vegan restaurants. I do it the same.
Yeah.
But I know what my favorite vegan restaurant is, and I absolutely love the place.
Yeah.
And, the plot is in Oceanside. It's this amazing vegan restaurant, and I actually just opened up 3 new restaurants that we need to go try.
I wish they would move down closer to San Diego because I live closer to San Diego than Anmar does. And Oceanside is a bit of a hike for me. I love that place, love the plot. My favorite in San Diego is Kindred for sure. I love Kindred. And then I also love Trilogy Sanctuary because I can get my yoga on and get a great vegan meal there. But Kindred is my go-to, and it's also my husband's favorite vegan place too. And he's not even technically a quote unquote vegan. Like he eats everything. But he and I will go to Kindred and they have great cocktails. We can have a cocktail and some great food. And I just love the vibe. It's a fun vibe.
It is a fun vibe.
Yeah.
I've been there with you quite a few times.
Yeah.
And I think if I had Kindred closer to me, then
I know, that's the thing. Yeah,
we would have swapped or maybe just go to both of
Totally,
them on
totally,
a regular basis.
Yeah.
So, Hollie, just going back, I know you are studying to become a vegan chef. You're doing the course.
Yeah.
And tell us a little bit about the difference between being in a normal culinary school or, and doing a vegan culinary journey, if you want to call it.
Yeah, so I am going through Food Future Institute's program. It's just an online program and go at your own pace, which is great because I do have a busy life with my husband and my art and my business. So it's kind of been a challenge to work it in here and there, but I'm still doing it. And it's been great to kind of learn maybe new techniques that I didn't know about. I used to cook professionally for over 20 years in the industry, as you know, and I cooked everything when I worked in the industry. But since moving to California 13 years ago, I've just been, slowly cutting all of that other stuff out of my diet. And then, of course, I want to learn new techniques. So that's what's been fun about taking this program is, there's some molecular gastronomy stuff that I didn't learn, in the restaurant business at the time, but now molecular gastronomy is everywhere. So it's like, it's so fun to learn these new techniques, as you know, and
Yeah.
just to apply them to, wow your clients, because it's not mainstream. I mean, it's mainstream in the restaurant business, but for private events, it's, people may not have seen new techniques like this. So it's fun to kind of wow clients sometimes with it.
Yeah, it is fun. I mean, molecular gastronomy has become like a fun part of life.
Yeah.
You play around and you make little pulls, or
Yeah.
whatever, you stuff something, or you make a gel.
Yeah.
Or,
So I think that's been the fun part about taking the vegan specific class, because it's like, yes, we can do the same things, but make it vegan.
yes.
And that's a thing that I think a lot of people don't understand. And when I do my husband and I entertain a lot. And when we do have parties, as you know,
Yeah.
like I love making food and like wowing my friends with it. And that's like my favorite part about hosting, is to just show, most of my friends are meat eaters, and just to show them that, oh my God, this is vegan, what? And it's just, I love surprising people that way.
I know you do always, and I have to tell you, her vegan food are pretty much out there.
Yeah. I
Um,
just recently got back from cooking in Sedona. I do a yearly retreat there with a local yoga studio. And I always do my vegan cheeses for them.
yeah.
And everyone's like, what, vegan cheese? Oh, normally vegan cheese is so gross, but this is good. Like, exactly. That's why I started making my own vegan cheeses, because the store-bought stuff, over processed, like they put too much crap in it, and it's just not good. Like, it sticks to the roof of your mouth sometimes, and it's just disgusting. So that's why I started making my own, and it's been a super success.
It is. It's funny, going to a store and they have really big vegan sections these days in any of the stores, well, the kind of stores that we go to in any case.
Yeah.
So there's a lot of vegan options on the shelves, but a lot of people buy that and then they eat it and they like, oh, okay, I can't be vegan because of the taste of it.
Yeah. And I really feel like, I do think when people go into stores and see all the vegan items, I do think it's great. It's like all the things, yes, albeit processed, but I think it's a great transition for people if they're curious about veganism, just to try a few things out there, because there are some companies that I really like that do make good vegan food. Yes, it's processed, but I tell people, just try it, like, as an alternative, if they're like want to dabble in, trying something vegan. Like, I love Miyoko's, like their plant-based butter is so good. It's my favorite thing that Miyoko's makes, is their butter. I use it in baking. I use it for everything, and it doesn't taste any different compared to butter. Like, I think it tastes better than butter, and it's made from cashews. It's great. But yeah, there are some really gross things out there on the market, but it's trial and error. Like, there's some great companies, there's some not so great companies, and there's some companies that, don't use a lot of processed stuff. So I always tell people, read your labels, read the labels. And if it's like a huge laundry list of items, don't buy it. But there's like, there's one company that makes vegan meat. It's Abbott Butchers.
Oh,
and they are great. I love their ground quote unquote beef. And that is great for like taco night, because it's like minimally processed. And when I want to do something quick and easy, I like that company because they are super clean. So it's like, just read your ingredients. And of course, fresh is always best. But I understand that people don't have the time. That's one thing that I run into with clients. They're like, I just don't have time to cook like this for myself. I'm like, but don't make it complicated. That's the thing. Like, I feel like people are like, it has to be complicated. No, just like, look in your refrigerator, see what you have, and just throw your stuff together, like steam it, bake it, saute it. It's so easy.
I know it's funny when people say they don't have time.
Yeah.
You know, eating as a chef, both of us being chef, we use very simple. I use salt, pepper, fresh herbs.
Yeah.
The chances of me using anything else is very, very minimal.
Garlic, always garlic.
No. But I mean, if you think about it, yeah. Well, okay. So I should ask you, if you were a superfood, what would you be?
Oh, superfood. Ooh, I think
A,
berries.
a superfood hero, remember now.
Oh yeah, yeah.
Superfood hero.
I think I would be a blackberry.
A blackberry. Why would you be a blackberry?
Well, first of all, they're my favorite fruits, great superfood, and they're pretty to look at.
Well, that you are. She's pretty to look at, you know. She always reminds me of a little live wire.
I mean, my nickname is Sassy for a reason. So
That's beautiful. No, okay, blackberry. So
blackberry.
I've got a grape now and a blackberry
Yeah,
and
imagine,
olive oil.
yeah, imagine a blackberry with a cape.
Flying around. Okay. I know what I'm buying you for Christmas. A blackberry cake.
Yes, there's always blackberries in my refrigerator too, because my husband and I eat oatmeal pretty much for every meal in the morning.
Yeah.
Yeah. So going back to the health question,
Yes.
this just talking about blackberries just triggered this in my memory. My family has a history of high blood pressure.
Yes.
So my grandfather had high blood pressure. My dad has high blood pressure. My brother has high blood pressure. Technically, I have high blood pressure, but I refuse to go on medication. All of my relatives are on medication for high blood pressure. And I'm like, no, I'm not going to rely on medication.
No.
So I have basically, really relied on like eating things like oatmeal in the morning.
Yeah.
And like superfoods, like we were talking about.
Yeah.
Just to manage that. And also I take some natural supplements and work with an acupuncturist with that too. And I just had my blood work done, and my doctor, my naturopathic doctor, was like, whatever you're doing, keep doing it.
Yeah.
So there we go. All my blood work came back great.
I know both of us are very into the natural health. I even make elderberry syrup. It's about just a sideline of mine that I've done for years, especially during COVID. People were asking me to make it all the time.
And it's really tasty.
It's very good for you. So using natural things for health, when you have a cold, I know you also believe on the honey and the lemon.
Absolutely.
And all those kind of things. And living a natural, happy life is really important. I know there is, people say, oh, but there's only natural health, you only believe what happens if you're in an accident. Yes, we need doctors, we need medicine for certain things, but for general everyday health situations, I am really on the page with you there that we are running to, or people are running towards what do you call it, scientific medicine or artificial medicine. Is an easy way to go, but it's always, most of the time for me, a short-term recovery and not a long-term recovery, where you have to start off and it only shows over a long period of time of use.
Absolutely.
Using natural health.
Yeah. And I want to outlive my great grandma Jane, who lived to be 103. And she had everything about her, like her faculties were all intact, except she lost her use of her eyes. So aside from that, she was with it. So I am really all about the longevity diets. And that's why and I shouldn't call it a diet, because I'm not on a diet. It's basically a way of living and a way of eating and just a way of thinking about your life. And like I said, the beans though, incorporating that 1 to 2 cups of beans in your life will add 2 years onto your life. So I am all about that, because I told my dad the other day, I'm like, I am going to outlive Grandma Jane. I'm going to live to be 105. So that's my goal. And, as you know, the key to that too is getting out and moving your body every day.
True. So, food connects you in every way. If you look at food, us being foodies, and we are foodies, let me tell you, we are picky what we eat.
Yes, I'm a food snob for sure.
Definitely a food snob there with you. And, being a food snob is the right thing to be, because that is the way you are feeding and the connection you have between your body and food, and every way you look at it. Absolutely. Even social, mental, physical, food influences everything.
Absolutely. I mean, growing up, food was such a connection for me and with my family. And I mean, I remember so many times going over to my grandpa and grandma Olson's, and my grandma immediately when we would enter the house sit down and have a little lunch. And she'd like have all these snacks and foods and homemade items that she would bake and cook. So it was all about like food just bringing us together. Like food creates community. And that is what I love about food. And I think why I love cooking for people so much is just, that's how I show my love, is through my food and through hosting and like having my friends over. And like when my family was in town recently, I was like, okay, I'm going to make this for dinner and blah, blah, blah. And it was great to introduce my nieces and my nephew to how I eat. Like they know that I don't eat meat, which, you know, for them, that is a little weird because they live in Minnesota where everybody eats meat in their little town. Not knocking that at all. That's just how they live. And it was so awesome to create plant-based meals for them when they were here. And they're like, oh my gosh, this is so good. I'm like, yes, exactly. You too can eat like this. So it was great to show my love for my family while they were here, you know, and just make those really good heart-centered meals for them.
You know, it is true. We do show our love through food.
Absolutely.
But I don't think it's just us. I think it is everybody.
Yeah.
You know, think about it. So what was your greatest comfort food as you grew up? Because this is really important, you know? What makes you warm and fuzzy on a day that your heart's breaking? Because I know emotions and food all
for
come
sure,
together.
for sure.
You
I
know?
would say like old school mac and cheese from the box when I was a kid. And even in college, you know, of course, a starving artist college student. You know, that was before, you know, I stopped eating dairy, but even now, like I make a great like plant-based mac and cheese. And that's like comfort to me.
Ah, that's very interesting.
Yeah.
You know, it's
Yeah.
like thinking about it is like my comfort food is what we call vet cook in South Africa and Afrikaans. And so the translation is probably fat cake, but they don't make it here in the US.
Explain
So
what that is.
it's made out of a dough. So it's this yeasty dough that you actually deep fry, and then it's this beautiful thing. And then you can put anything on the inside. My favorite was cheese and honey. If you can fill it with cheese and honey, I would sit and eat it there. The honey would drip over my fingers into it was such a mess, but it made me so happy, you know. And it's this amazing. I need to make that for
There you go.
Yeah.
There you go.
It's vegan.
There you go.
So
we'll fill it with my vegan cheese.
We'll fill it with the vegan cheese and maybe a new thing for us, you know.
Give it a shot.
Give it a shot. But I love that you love food so much.
Oh, yeah.
I know how much you love food.
Absolutely.
You know.
And I feel like I really got that handed down to me from my family. Like I remember when I was growing up as a kid, my dad loved to cook, my mom loved to cook. So it was all like all of us were in the kitchen pretty frequently. And my mom, you know, I said I grew up in a really small town in Minnesota, and my mom was always cooking like these different, like quote unquote international foods, you know, because it was like a big deal in Dassel, where I grew up, like small town of 1,200. And I remember my friend Chris telling me, oh my gosh, I remember your mom was the first one in our town to have a wok. And in the early 80s, that was a big deal. But like, it was so cool it's so cool now to think back as far as like all these memories and how they all, like a lot of my memories growing up relate to food. And I'm like, no wonder I'm obsessed with food.
True. You know, I think the way we grew up, and it does influence us.
Absolutely.
No matter how, I mean, you're still your own person.
Of course.
But that foundations that's been put there keeps you going.
Absolutely.
You know, and keeps being the person you are.
Yeah. And I remember, you know, going down to my great grandma Jane's, the one that lived to 103. She lived in this tiny apartment in South Minneapolis, and she used to own a dairy store back in like the 40s, 50s, I think. And she would always invite all these random people from her neighborhood, like strangers she'd meet on the street, her neighbors, and invite them over for Sunday dinner, like every Sunday. And she would set up these little card tables like next to each other and then squeeze the chairs in. And I remember we'd just be packed in like sardines, and we'd come down to Minneapolis to visit her, and we'd just be like packed in like sardines eating dinner. But it was so great, the community that she created around these dinners. So
Connection.
it's
Food
all, it
connections.
absolutely is. And that was a huge influence on me and why I think I love to host so much. Like watching my great grandmother do that. And then my grandma Olson, she owned a small catering company with her sister and also was a farm wife. So she made these big meals for all these farm hands on their farm. And then also had this catering company with her sister. But like I said, we would go over to her house all the time and there would always be food everywhere. Like, sit down and eat. I'm like, okay. So yeah, I mean, from a young age, it's like I remember all these fond memories.
That's amazing. So before we end today's podcast,
Yes.
I would like Hollie to tell us a little bit about her website, where you can find and go look up for Hollie and, what she does. And she does do cheese making classes and she does make food, vegan food on
Yes.
request. And, she's available, but she's available as an amazing human being, sometimes just to connect with.
Oh, thanks, Anmar. So you can find me you can find me on Instagram for sure at Full Moon Foods. And then my website is fullmoonfoods.life. That's .life, not .com, fullmoonfoods.life. So get in touch with me. I would love to connect with you. I would love to share my vegan cheeses with you and everything else. Oh, and one of my other things that I love to do is I love to cook for wellness events and yoga retreats and bring my food that way. So if you're out there and you're thinking, oh, I want to connect with you and find out more about what you do, get in touch with me. I'd love to talk with you.
Hollie, thank you so much for coming and sharing your life with me on this podcast. It's a journey for me to have the people that I love so much, first of all, on my podcast and talk about the things that we love so much.
Absolutely. It was my pleasure.
Thank you.
Thanks, Amar.
Thank you. Bye.